Captain Derek Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the horizon's edge. He watched the stars through the large window in front of him. For 3 months, his crew had been flying through the outer edges of human space. They checked sensor equipment and updated maps. It was boring work, but Derek didn't mind. After 20 years in the military, he liked the quiet. "Captain, I'm seeing something strange," Lieutenant Amy Chen said from her station. Her voice sounded worried. Derek walked over to her quickly. "What kind of strange?" "Multiple ships, sir. At least 30 of them. They're sitting still near the Kepler belt right at the edge of what we can scan." Amy's fingers moved across her screen. "Sir, these ships don't match anything in our records. They're not human. They're not from any species we know." Derek felt his heart beat faster. He thought about first contact rules, but something about how the ships were arranged made him nervous. These ships weren't exploring. They looked like they were getting ready for something. "Give me a full scan," he ordered. "Communications, start sending greetings on all frequencies we know. Helm, stop the ship. Let's not scare them." Lieutenant Jake Palmer worked at his station. Minutes passed. Nobody spoke. The bridge crew looked at each other nervously. "No answer to our messages, Captain," Jake finally said. "But sir, I'm picking up coded messages between those unknown ships. Heavy codes, military type." Derek's jaw got tight. "Tactical, how are our weapons?" "All systems ready, Captain," said Commander Lisa Hayes from her station. "But sir, if those ships are warships, we don't have enough firepower." Before Derek could answer, Amy gasped. "Captain, they're moving. All ships are heading toward human space. They're going faster. Sir, at this speed, they'll reach our colony worlds in less than 2 days." Derek's mind raced. The nearest fleet was 4 days away. The colonies in their path had over 2 million people. Most of them were farmers and miners with no way to defend themselves. "Helm, set a course to block them. Maximum speed," Derek commanded. "Communications, send an emergency message to Fleet Command. Say this is an immediate threat. Amy, I need everything you can tell me about those ships." The horizon's edge moved forward fast. Amy worked hard at her screen. "First look suggests very advanced engines, Captain. Their energy readings are huge. These ships are big too. The smallest one is twice the size of our heavy cruisers." Derek stared at the display screen, watching the red marks that showed the unknown fleet getting closer to human space. His ship, a single frigate with 80 crew members, was all that stood between these invaders and defenseless colonies. "All crew, this is the captain," he said over the ship's speakers. "We have unknown hostile forces heading toward our territory. Battle stations. This is not a drill." Throughout the ship, people ran to their positions. In engineering, Chief Paul Warren started sending power to weapons and shields. In the medical bay, Dr. Helen Park got emergency supplies ready. In the fighter bay, Lieutenant Commander Greg Walsh and his 6 pilots started checking their small attack craft. Derek looked at the colony records on his screen. New Haven had 1.2 million people. Clearwater Station had 600,000. Horizon's Landing had 450,000. All of them had no defense, trusting the fleet to keep them safe. 30 minutes until we can fire." "Captain," Lisa said. "Sir, I'm getting better scans now," Amy said. Her voice shook a little. "These ships have heavy weapons. Defense systems, missiles, and what looks like energy weapons. Captain, their armor is made of something we've never seen before." Derek nodded slowly. He understood their situation. They were weaker in every way. But they had one advantage. The unknown fleet didn't know what humans could do when fighting for survival. "Lisa, I want targets on the lead ships," he ordered. "We're going to hit them fast and hard. Try to break up their formation. Amy, focus all scanning on finding weak points in their defenses. Jake, keep sending messages on all channels. If they want to talk, I'm listening. If they want to fight, we'll give them a fight they won't forget." The crew worked hard as the distance got smaller. Derek watched the display, his mind working out odds and plans. They couldn't win this fight in a normal way, but maybe they could buy enough time for the colonies to evacuate. 15 minutes until we can fire," Lisa called out. Derek held the arms of his chair tight. "This is it, people. Remember your training. Trust your gut, and know that whatever happens in the next few hours, we're standing between millions of innocent people and an unknown enemy. That's what we signed up for." As the horizon's edge raced toward the biggest military force humanity had ever seen, Derek looked at the stars one last time. "Beautiful, endless, and about to become a war zone. 10 minutes until we can fire, Captain." Derek sat up straight. "All weapons, get ready." The ship moved closer. Every sensor was pointed at the huge formation ahead. In the 10 minutes since battle stations were called, the crew had changed from a routine patrol into a fighting force. 5 minutes until we can launch missiles, Lisa said. Her hands were ready to fire everything they had. Derek studied the enemy formation on the main screen. The ships were arranged in a perfect pattern, keeping exact distances from each other. It was scary but beautiful, showing a level of control that made his stomach hurt. "Amy, have we found a command ship?" he asked. "No, sir. The formation is too even. They could all be command ships, or they could be working under shared control." She paused. "Wait. Captain, I'm seeing a small difference in the energy coming from 3 ships near the center. They're running hotter than the others." "Could be power ships," Lisa suggested. "Or carriers," Derek nodded. "Those are our main targets. If we can knock out their power or stop their fighters from launching, we might force them to break formation." "Jake, any answer to our messages?" "Nothing, sir. They're still talking among themselves, but they're ignoring us completely." Derek felt cold. Being ignored was worse than being threatened. It meant these aliens thought the horizon's edge was so unimportant that they didn't even need to notice it. 2 minutes until we can fire missiles. Lisa counted down. Derek opened a channel to engineering. "Paul, how are we looking down there?" "Engines at top efficiency, Captain." Chief Warren's voice came back. "I have emergency power ready for shields or weapons when you need it. Just say the word. Stand by." Derek closed the channel and spoke to the bridge crew. "Listen up, everyone. We're about to pick a fight with something much bigger than us. Our job isn't to win. Our job is to make them notice us, to slow them down, and to give Fleet Command time to respond. We're going to hit them. We're going to hurt them, and then we're going to make them chase us away from the colonies. Understood?" Everyone said yes. 1 minute until we can fire missiles. Derek leaned forward. "Lisa, get ready to fire everything on my mark. Target those 3 hot ships Amy found. Amy, the moment those missiles launch, I want every sensor we have pointed at the enemy. Let's see how they respond." The seconds went by. The alien fleet kept moving forward, seeming to not notice the threat coming from behind. "We can fire missiles in 10 seconds, Lisa said. 987, and Derek's hand got tight on his chair. "Fire!" "Jump successful," the helmsman gasped. "But sir, we've got major drive problems. Another jump like that and we risk total failure." "Damage report," Derek demanded. "Hull breaches on decks 5 and 8, Amy listed quickly. "Emergency force fields holding. Jump drive efficiency down to 70%. And Captain, we've got casualties. Medical report 6 injured in engineering." Derek felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Every decision he made put his crew at risk, but turning back now would kill the colonies. "Get repair crews on those breaches. Paul, I need those drives stable." "Working on it, Captain. Give me 20 minutes. You've got 10. The pattern continued. "Jump, fight, jump again." Each cycle pushed the horizon's edge closer to breaking point. Shields failed and had to be rerouted through backup systems. The railgun barrels got too hot and had to be replaced. The crew worked beyond exhaustion, driven by pure determination and the knowledge that millions of lives depended on them. Finally, after what felt like forever, Amy shouted, "Captain, I've got new contacts. Multiple jump signatures. Sir, it's our fleet. Battle groups 3 and 9 just arrived." Derek let himself relax slightly in his chair. "About time. Jake, send our tactical data to the fleet. Let them know what we've learned about these ships." The main screen lit up with the amazing sight of 60 human warships appearing from jump space. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and the massive bulk of 2 battleships. The situation had changed. Admiral Richard Kemp's voice came over the comms. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Kemp. We're taking over from here. Get your ship to the carrier group for repairs. You've done enough. With respect, Admiral, we'd like to finish this fight." There was a pause, then a laugh. "Very well, Captain. Form up with Destroyer Squadron 4. Let's show these aliens what happens when they threaten human space." The battle groups moved into formation, and the aliens suddenly found themselves facing a force that matched their numbers. What had been a chase became a real battle. The human fleet, guided by the tactical data the horizon's edge had gathered during its running fight, used every weakness in the alien defenses. The fight lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the alien fleet had been destroyed, with only 5 ships managing to escape into jump. The human fleet had taken losses as well, but they had won. As the horizon's edge limped toward the carrier Apollo for repairs, Derek received another message from Admiral Cole. Captain, I've just received word from Battle Group 7. They stopped the alien ship heading for New Haven. It's been disabled and is being towed to Titan Station for study. Thanks to you and your crew, not a single civilian was lost. Well done. Derek felt the tension finally leave his shoulders. Thank you, Admiral. My crew deserves all the credit. They'll get it, Captain. Promotions, medals, everything. But Morrison, there's something else. Our intelligence people have been looking at the messages from these aliens. We've translated some of it, and they call themselves the Krell Dominion. According to their communications, that fleet we just defeated was a scouting force. Captain, this isn't over. It's just beginning. Derek looked out at the debris field floating in space, the remains of ships from two species who had never met before this day. Somewhere out there, the Krell Dominion was learning that humanity wouldn't go quietly into the night. Then we'd better be ready for them. Admiral, 3 weeks after the battle, Captain Derek Morrison found himself in a place he'd never expected to be. He stood in the United Earth Council chambers on Earth, about to speak to the planetary leadership and representatives from every human colony. The Horizon's Edge was still in dry dock at Titan Station, getting major repairs. Half his crew was on medical leave, recovering from injuries. The other half had been sent across the fleet, sharing their experiences and the tactical data they'd gathered in what was now being called the Battle of the Kepler Belt. Derek stood at attention as Council President Henry Walsh called the session to order. The massive chamber held representatives from 63 worlds, all of them looking to Derek for answers he wasn't sure he had. Captain Morrison, President Walsh began, his voice echoing through the hall. On behalf of humanity, we thank you and your crew for your service. The colonies you saved number over 2 million souls who owe their lives to your actions. Polite clapping filled the chamber. Derek remained still, uncomfortable with the attention. However, Walsh continued, his tone growing serious, we did not bring you here merely to thank you. We need your assessment. You're the first human to fight these Krell in combat. What can you tell us about them? Derek stepped forward to the podium. He'd spent the past 2 weeks helping intelligence analysts look at every bit of data they'd collected. What they'd learned had changed everything. Mr. President, Council members, he began, the Krell Dominion is unlike any species we've met. They're technologically advanced, highly organized, and most importantly, they have a fundamentally different view of the galaxy than we do. He turned on a holographic display showing the Krell ship designs. These ships represent a civilization that's been traveling space for at least 2,000 years. Their technology in many areas exceeds our own, particularly in energy weapons and shield systems. However, they have weaknesses. Their shields work best against energy weapons, making them weak to kinetic strikes. Their coordination, while impressive, relies on networked communications that can be disrupted. A council member from the Titan colonies raised her hand. Captain, do we know what they want? Why they attacked? Derek nodded to Jake Palmer, who sat in the observation section. The lieutenant had been key in translating the Krell communications. We've managed to decode roughly 30% of their messages, Derek explained. What we've learned is disturbing. The Krell don't have a concept of living together peacefully. In their language, there isn't even a word for neighbor or ally. There's only the Dominion and the inferior. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Derek pressed on. The fleet we fought was indeed a scouting force, as Admiral Cole reported. But it was more than that. It was a compliance force. The Krell expected to arrive, show their superiority, and have us submit without fighting. When we fought back, it confused them. Their initial communications showed genuine surprise that we would resist. President Walsh leaned forward. Are you saying they expected us to just surrender? More than that, sir. Based on their messages, the Krell have met 17 other species in the past 500 years. 15 of them surrendered without fighting. One species resisted and was killed off. The last species fought back successfully once, so the Krell returned with a larger fleet and wiped them out anyway. The chamber erupted in alarmed conversation. Walsh called for order, then spoke to Derek again. What happened to the species that surrendered? Derek's jaw tightened. They were absorbed into the Dominion, stripped of their freedom, forced to serve Krell interests. Their worlds became resource colonies, their populations workers. The Krell don't commit genocide when they don't have to. They prefer to exploit. And they thought we would accept this, asked Admiral Cole, who sat on the military council. They did, Admiral. Because in their experience, most species do. The galaxy, as the Krell see it, is divided between themselves and everyone else. They genuinely believe they're superior, and that their rule over other species is the natural order. Derek paused, then delivered the most critical piece of information they'd learned. But here's what's important. The 5 ships that escaped our fight made it back to Krell space. We've detected long-range communications being sent to what we believe is their home territory. The Krell High Command is meeting to discuss the human problem. How long do we have? Walsh asked. Intelligence estimates between 6 months and a year before they can gather a proper invasion force. The scouting fleet we destroyed had ships from several Krell sectors. A full invasion fleet will take time to organize even for them. The chamber fell silent as the weight of this information settled over the council. Finally, Walsh spoke again. Captain Morrison, based on your experience fighting the Krell, can we win a war against them? Derek had known this question was coming. He'd spent sleepless nights wrestling with the answer. Mr. President, the honest answer is that I don't know. The Krell have numbers and technology on their side. But they also have a weakness we can use. They're overconfident. They've conquered so much of the galaxy without serious resistance that they've forgotten how to fight an enemy that refuses to quit. The Krell fleet suddenly found themselves under attack from a completely new direction. And unlike the professional military vessels they'd been fighting, these civilian crewed ships fought with a desperate ferocity that surprised even Derek. One converted mining ship, the Clearwater Pride, deliberately rammed a Krell cruiser after taking critical damage. Its captain's final message was a defiant curse. A colony transport called New Haven's Hope used mining charges designed to crack asteroids and use them to devastating effect against Krell hull armor. Supreme Commander Zekthar contacted Derek again. His previously calm behavior now showed signs of agitation. This is not honorable warfare. You use civilian vessels. You attack from ambush. You refuse to engage in proper combat. Derek's response was cold. Honor is a luxury for species that have the strength to afford it, Commander. We're fighting for our survival. There's no honor in that, just necessity. The battle continued through the day and into what would have been night on Earth. Human losses mounted, but so did Krell casualties. Every Krell ship destroyed was one less threat to the colonies. Every hour the battle lasted was another hour for evacuation fleets to get civilians to safety deeper in human space. Finally, as the fight entered its 18th hour, something unexpected happened. The Krell fleet began to withdraw. Sir, they're pulling back, Amy reported. She couldn't believe it. The Krell are retreating. Derek didn't allow himself to feel relief yet. Confirm that. Are they regrouping or actually leaving? Confirmed, Commodore. All remaining Krell vessels are accelerating toward jump distance. They're leaving. Lisa pulled up the battle analysis. Sir, we've destroyed or disabled 97 Krell ships. They've destroyed 42 of ours with another 60 damaged. But we've still got operational vessels. They probably expected to win with minimal losses. Derek understood. The Krell had come expecting an easy victory, another species to add to their dominion. Instead, they'd found an enemy willing to use every tactic, every resource, every ounce of courage to resist. They'd won the battle by objective measures, but they'd paid a price they hadn't expected. Jake, can you intercept their messages? Already on it, sir. They're calling this fight the translation is rough, but something like a victory not worth the cost. It seems they're recommending to their high command that humanity be left alone for now. Left alone? The exact wording is interesting, Commodore. They're classifying us as a hostile species requiring unacceptable resources to subjugate. We're too costly to conquer. Derek leaned back in his command chair, feeling the exhaustion of 18 hours of continuous combat. They hadn't won. The Krell could come back with an even larger fleet if they wanted. But for now, for today, humanity had earned something more valuable than victory. They'd earned the right to exist on their own terms. All ships cease fire, he ordered. Begin search and rescue operations for survivors from destroyed vessels. Medical ships prepare to receive casualties. As the fleet began the grim work of recovering their dead and wounded, Derek opened a private channel to his senior staff. We did it, he said simply. We showed them that humans don't surrender. That attacking us costs more than we're worth. It's not peace, but it's not extinction either. Dr. Helen Park, coordinating medical efforts from the fleet hospital ship, responded, How long do you think they'll leave us alone? As long as we make sure conquering us remains too expensive, Derek replied. We need to keep building ships, improving our defenses, training our crews. The Krell will watch us. Maybe they'll come back in 10 years, maybe 50, maybe never. But we'll be ready. Over the next few weeks, as the human fleet regrouped and the casualties were counted, the full scope of what they'd accomplished became clear. The Krell had retreated, yes, but more than that, they'd sent a message to their entire dominion. Humanity was dangerous. Derek received word that other species under Krell rule had heard about the battle. Whispers of a species that fought back successfully, that made the supposedly invincible Krell retreat. Some of these enslaved species began their own quiet rebellions. The Krell Empire, it turned out, was less stable than it appeared. It had grown through centuries of easy conquests against species that surrendered. It wasn't built to handle prolonged resistance from multiple sources. A year after the battle, Derek was called to Earth once again. This time he was met by President Walsh and the entire United Earth Council. "Commodore Morrison," Walsh began, "what you and your crew started in the Kepler belt has changed everything. The Krell have not returned. Our intelligence suggests they're dealing with internal issues, species they'd conquered, who now see them as vulnerable." "We showed them they could bleed," Derek said. "Sometimes that's enough." Walsh nodded. "The Council wants to promote you to Admiral and put you in charge of all frontier defenses." "You've earned it." Derek considered the offer, then shook his head. "Thank you, Mr. President, but I'd prefer to stay with the Rapid Response Fleet. If the Krell do come back, I want to be on the front lines, not behind a desk." Walsh smiled. "I thought you might say that." "Very well, Admiral Morrison. The Horizon's Edge is yours to command, along with your response fleet. Keep our borders safe." As Derek left Earth and returned to his ship, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. From a routine patrol to first contact, from a desperate running battle to the largest fleet fight in human history, his ship had been outgunned, outnumbered, and should have been destroyed a dozen times over. But they'd survived. More than that, they'd shown the galaxy that humanity was here to stay. The Silent Sky War, as historians would later call it, wasn't a traditional war at all. There were no occupied territories, no prolonged campaigns, no peace treaties. It was a war fought in the shadows of space, where one species proved to another that conquest would be too costly to pursue. And sometimes, that was enough. Derek stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Edge, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krell were watching. Somewhere out there, other species were fighting for their freedom, inspired by humanity's example. The galaxy would never be truly safe, but it would never be the same either. Lieutenant Amy approached him with a report. "Admiral, we've received word from the colony worlds. They're building monuments to the ships and crews lost in the battle. They want to honor the sacrifice," Derek nodded. "Good. People should remember what it cost to earn our freedom. What do you think happens now, sir?" Derek considered the question. Now we live. We build, we explore, we grow stronger, and we stay ready, because the galaxy is vast and full of unknowns. But whatever comes next, we'll face it the same way we faced the Krell. How's that, sir?" Derek smiled. "On our own terms." The Horizon's Edge turned toward the frontier, toward the unknown depths of space, carrying with it the hopes of humanity and the lesson that no species, no matter how powerful, could make humans kneel. The Silent Sky War was over, but humanity's story among the stars had only just begun. In the months that followed, more news reached human space. The Krell Dominion was fracturing. Species they had conquered for centuries were rising up, emboldened by the human example. The Krell found themselves fighting wars on multiple fronts, stretched thin by rebellions they had never anticipated. Some of these species reached out to humanity, seeking advice, seeking allies. Derek found himself not just defending human space, but helping others learn how to resist their oppressors. The Rapid Response Fleet became something more than a defensive force. It became a symbol that resistance was possible, that the strong could be defeated by the determined. That freedom was worth fighting for, no matter the odds. Derek Morrison, the captain who had commanded a single frigate against impossible odds, became Admiral Morrison, the man who had changed the balance of power in the galaxy, but he never forgot where it all started. On the bridge of the Horizon's Edge, facing an unknown enemy, with nothing but his crew and their refusal to surrender. Years later, when asked what the key to defeating the Krell had been, Derek's answer was simple. "We didn't defeat them," he said. "We just made them understand that we would never stop fighting. That every victory they won against us would cost them more than it was worth. That humanity, once pushed, would push back harder." He paused, looking out at the stars once more. The Krell thought they were conquering another inferior species. What they found instead was a species that refused to accept that label. They thought we would be easy. We showed them they were wrong. The Horizon's Edge continued its patrols, watching the borders, ready for whatever came next. The crew changed over the years, new faces replacing the old, but the spirit remained the same. The spirit of those who had faced the impossible and refused to back down. And in the vastness of space, that spirit echoed across the stars, a silent testament to the strength of those who refused to kneel, who refused to surrender, who refused to accept defeat. The silent sky war had ended not with a bang but with a whisper that spread across the galaxy, telling all who would listen that humanity was here, that humanity was strong, and that humanity would never be conquered. Derek Morrison stood on his bridge, older now but no less determined, and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krell were licking their wounds. Derek looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from distant worlds. During our running battle, something became clear to me and my crew. The Krell fight like they're following a set plan. When we did something unexpected, when we broke up their formation or jammed their communications, they struggled to adapt. They're excellent at executing strategy, but they're not used to dealing with chaos. Admiral Cole stood. Are you suggesting we use irregular tactics? I'm suggesting we use human tactics, Admiral. We're adaptable. We're creative. We don't have the luxury of technological superiority or big numbers, so we've always had to think our way through problems. Every major battle in human history has been won by the side that could adapt faster than their enemy. Derek gestured to the holographic display, changing it to show the tactical overview of their fight. My ship was outgunned 50-1. By every measure, we should have been destroyed in the first 5 minutes. But we survived for 6 hours through constant adaptation. We learned their patterns, used their weaknesses, and made them react to us instead of the other way around. That's what we need to do on a fleet-wide scale. Dr. Helen Park, who had been invited to speak on behalf of the Horizon's Edge crew, stood up. Mr. President, if I may add something. During the battle, I had a unique perspective from the medical bay. I watched crew members push past exhaustion, past injury to keep fighting. Not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. The Krell might have superior technology, but I don't think they understand what drives humans to fight. It's not just following orders or believing in superiority. It's about protecting what matters to us. Walsh nodded slowly. Thank you, Doctor. Captain Morrison, one final question. If you were in command of our defensive preparations, what would you do? Derek hadn't expected that question, but the answer came easily. Sir, I would do 3 things. First, fortify the colony worlds with serious defensive installations. Make them costly targets. Second, build more ships, lots of them. We need numbers. But most importantly, I would train every captain and crew in the fleet to think independently. The Krell rely on centralized command. We should do the opposite. Give our people the tools and training they need, then trust them to make the right decisions in the moment. The council session continued for several more hours, with Derek and his officers answering technical questions and providing detailed analysis. But the foundation had been laid. Humanity would prepare for war. As Derek left the council chambers that evening, Admiral Cole walked beside him. That was quite a speech, Captain. You know they're going to offer you a promotion after this. Probably jump you right to Commodore and give you a squadron. Derek shook his head. With respect, Admiral, I'd rather return to the Horizon's Edge. My crew earned the right to finish what we started. Cole smiled. I thought you might say that. Between you and me, Morrison, I think you're right about everything you said in there. The Krell are going to learn a hard lesson. Humanity doesn't kneel. As Derek looked out at the Earth spinning peacefully below the orbital station, he thought about the 29 Krell ships his fleet had destroyed. Somewhere across the galaxy, the Dominion was making plans, gathering forces, preparing to crush the upstart humans who had dared to resist. Let them come, Derek thought. We'll be ready. 8 months later, the Krell returned. They came in force, as intelligence had predicted. 300 ships dropped out of jump space at the edge of human territory, a fleet 10 times larger than the scouting force the Horizon's Edge had first met. But this time they weren't facing a single frigate on patrol. Captain Derek Morrison, now Commodore Morrison, stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Edge, fully repaired and upgraded with the latest weapons and defensive systems. Around his ship, 40 other vessels of the newly formed Rapid Response Fleet held formation, ready to execute the strategy that Derek and Fleet Command had spent months developing. "All ships report ready, Commodore," said Commander Lisa Hayes, promoted and now serving as Derek's fleet tactical coordinator. Derek studied the massive Krell fleet on the display. They were arranged in their standard geometric formation, confident in their overwhelming superiority. The human fleet, by contrast, looked small and scattered, ships distributed across a wide area of space. "They're calling us, sir," Jake Palmer announced. The lieutenant had been promoted as well, now serving as chief communications coordinator for the entire response fleet. "Let's hear what they have to say." The screen turned on, showing a Krell commander. The alien was bipedal but distinctly non-human, with hard armor plates covering its body and multiple sensory organs arranged around its head. When it spoke, the translator turned its words into flat, emotionless English. "I am Supreme Commander Zekthar of the Krell Dominion. You have been judged as a species and found worthy of assimilation into the Dominion. You will surrender your military forces, submit your governments to Krell authority, and prepare your populations for integration. Compliance will be rewarded. Resistance will be punished." Derek let a few seconds of silence pass before responding. "Supreme Commander, I am Commodore Derek Morrison of the United Earth Fleet. On behalf of humanity, I have a message for you and your Dominion." He paused, meeting the alien's inhuman gaze through the screen. "No." Zekthar's sensory organs twitched in what might have been surprise. "You refuse? You who field barely 300 vessels against our might? You cannot win this conflict." "Probably not," Derek agreed easily. "Your fleet is larger. Your technology is more advanced in many areas. By every objective measure, you should win this fight. Then why do you resist?" Derek smiled. "Because we're human, Commander. It's what we do." He cut the transmission and immediately opened a channel to his fleet. "All ships, start Operation Chaos. Remember your training. Think independently, adapt constantly, and make them regret coming here." Morrison out. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human fleet didn't fight in a traditional formation battle. Instead, they scattered individual ships and small squadrons attacking from multiple directions at once. The Horizon's Edge led Squadron 7 in a high-speed run against the Krell left flank, firing missiles and railgun rounds before breaking off and jumping to a new position. 3 other squadrons hit the right flank seconds later. 2 more struck from above and below the Krell formation. The Krell, used to facing enemies who fought in organized formations, struggled to adapt. Their networked communications, so effective in coordinated actions, became a problem as contradictory targeting data flooded their systems. Ships that should have been focusing on the most immediate threat instead tried to support distant vessels under attack. "They're trying to reform their formation," Amy reported from her sensor station. She'd been promoted to Derek's chief intelligence officer and was coordinating data analysis across the entire fleet. "Then we don't let them," Derek replied. "All squadrons maintain pressure. Don't give them time to organize." For 2 hours, the battle raged across a sphere of space hundreds of thousands of kilometers wide. Human ships appeared, struck, and vanished, using their inferior numbers as an advantage. The Krell couldn't bring their full force to bear because they couldn't predict where the next attack would come from. But slowly, things began to turn. Despite their tactical confusion, the Krell's technological advantage started to show. Human ships were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. Squadron leaders reported critical damage, empty ammunition, exhausted crews. "Commodore, we've lost contact with 8 ships," Lisa reported grimly. 12 more are reporting critical damage and withdrawing from the battle. Derek watched the tactical display. They'd destroyed or disabled 40 Krell ships, but that still left the enemy with a massive numerical advantage. It was time for the next phase of the plan. Signal battle groups 2 through 8. Begin Phase 2. Across human space, hidden among the asteroids and moons of every colony system, over 200 ships came out of hiding. These weren't frontline warships. They were converted freighters, mining vessels, even colony transports. But each one had been fitted with missiles, railguns, and point defense systems. More importantly, each one was crewed by volunteers, colonists who had refused to evacuate when the Krell invaded. The Horizon's Edge shook as every missile tube fired at once. 36 powerful missiles shot across space, their engines burning bright against the darkness. "Missiles away," Lisa confirmed. "Time until they hit 45 seconds. Amy, what are they doing?" Derek demanded. For a moment, nothing happened. The alien ships kept going, the missiles getting closer fast. Then just as Derek began to hope they might actually hit, the formation reacted. "They're using defenses," Amy called out. Point defense systems turning on across the whole fleet. The display screen lit up with activity. Beams of energy shot out from the alien ships, hitting the paths of the incoming missiles. One by one, the missiles began disappearing from the screen. "They're destroying them," Lisa said. She couldn't believe it. "Captain, their defense accuracy is amazing. I've never seen anything like it." Derek watched as their entire missile attack was destroyed one by one. Not a single warhead reached its target. But the aliens had shown something important. Their defenses were focused on their front. "Jake, did you record their defense firing patterns?" "Yes, sir." "Looking at it now, Amy, keep scanning. I want to know how they work together." Before either officer could answer, the alien fleet finally noticed the horizon's edge. 20 of the ships turned to face the human ship. Energy readings went way up across the board. "Captain, they're powering weapons," Amy warned. "Multiple targets locked on us." Derek's mind worked fast. This was the moment he'd been planning for. Helm evasive pattern Delta 7. Paul, all power to rear shields. Lisa, get ready to fire railguns the moment we're close enough. Aim for their engines and sensors. The horizon's edge dove and twisted through space, its engines screaming as the pilot pushed the ship as hard as it could go. Bright blue beams of energy cut through the space where they'd been seconds before. "They're firing some kind of plasma weapon," Amy reported. "Captain, if one of those hits us directly, our shields won't last long." "Then we don't let them hit us," Derek replied. "Helm, keep us moving." "Lisa, return fire." The ship's railguns opened up, sending streams of super-fast metal rounds toward the nearest alien ships. The kinetic rounds hit shimmering energy shields that appeared with each hit. "We're getting through their shields," Lisa said. Excitement crept into her voice. "Not much, but we're causing damage. Their shields seem to be made for stopping energy weapons, not solid rounds." Derek allowed himself a small smile. "That's something. Focus fire on one target. Let's see if we can bring down their shields." For the next 5 minutes, the horizon's edge danced through enemy fire, shooting back shot for shot. The crew worked desperately, each person knowing that one mistake would kill them. The ship's shields absorbed hit after hit, their strength slowly going down. "Shields at 60%, Amy called out. "Captain, I've looked at their defensive coordination," Jake suddenly said. "They're using a networked system. Each ship is sharing targeting information with the others. That's how they got all our missiles." Derek saw the chance immediately. "Can we jam their communications?" "Maybe, but it would take all our electronic warfare power. We'd be broadcasting our position like a bright light." "Do it. If we can blind them, even for a few seconds, we might create an opening." Jake's fingers flew across his screen. "Starting full-spectrum jamming now." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The precise coordination of the alien fleet stopped. Ships that had been moving in perfect sync suddenly hesitated, their formation getting loose. "Their fire rate is dropping," Lisa observed. "They're having trouble keeping target locks." Derek grabbed the moment. "All fighters launch. Greg, take your squadron in fast. Hit the same target we've been shooting, then get out. You'll only have one pass before they adapt." In the fighter bay, Lieutenant Commander Greg Walsh and his 5 wingmen launched into the chaos. The small, quick craft shot past the horizon's edge, weaving through the incoming fire. "Target found." Greg's voice came over the comms. "All wings follow my lead. Focus on the shield generators." The fighters swept in, their lighter weapons adding to the attack from the horizon's edge. The focused fire finally broke through the alien ship's shields. Railgun rounds punched through the hull, causing explosions along the ship's side. "We got a kill!" Lisa shouted. "Target is breaking apart." But the victory didn't last long. The alien fleet adapted to the jamming within seconds, their communications shifting to frequencies Jake couldn't block. The remaining 19 ships focused their fire on the horizon's edge with new intensity. "Shields at 30%, Amy warned. "Captain, we can't take much more of this." Derek knew she was right. They'd hurt the enemy. They'd proven that humans could fight back, but the odds were still very bad against them. It was time for the next part of his plan. "All fighters return to ship," he ordered. "Helm, prepare for emergency jump. Plot a course that takes us away from the colonies but keeps us between them and the enemy fleet." "Captain, if we jump now, the colonies will have no defense," Lisa protested. "That's the point," Derek replied. "We've made them angry. Now we're going to make them follow us. The Horizon's Edge jumped through space, systems screaming alerts as the ship's drives powered down. Derek held his command chair as the ship shook, emergency systems trying to compensate for the quick transition. Status report, he barked. Jump successful, Captain, the helmsman reported. We're 300,000 kilometers from our last position, heading away from colonial space. Shields recharging, Amy added. Current level 22%. All fighters recovered. Minor damage to hull sections 7 and 12, but nothing critical. Derek breathed out slowly. They'd survived the first fight, but the question now was whether the aliens would take the bait. Jake, give me long-range sensors. Are they following? The communications officer worked his screen, then looked up with both relief and fear. Yes, sir. 29 contacts breaking off from the main fleet. They're coming after us. 29, Lisa questioned. That's almost their entire force. Only one ship is still heading toward the colonies. Derek had hoped to draw away more, but it would have to do. Helm, calculate a course that keeps us where they can see us but out of their weapons range. Maximum sustainable speed. Paul, how long until we can jump again? Drives need at least 30 minutes to cycle, Captain. The chief engineer's voice came back. But I wouldn't recommend jumping again so soon. We're risking permanent damage to the jump core. Noted. Prepare for multiple jumps anyway. We're going to play tag with these ships until the fleet arrives. Over the next 4 hours, the Horizon's Edge led the alien pursuit force on a winding path through the outer system. They would jump, let the aliens catch up, exchange fire, then jump again before taking critical damage. It was a desperate plan, slowly using up their fuel and wearing down the crew, but it was working. Captain, we've got incoming message, Jake suddenly said. It's from Fleet Command. Derek straightened. Put it through. Admiral Patricia Cole's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Captain Morrison, we've received your reports. What's your status? Still in one piece, Admiral, but barely. We've drawn away most of the enemy force, but they won't quit. One ship is still heading for the colonies. The Admiral nodded. Battle Group 7 is heading to stop that ship. They'll reach New Haven in 6 hours. As for you, Captain, help is coming. Battle Groups 3 and 9 are jumping to your coordinates. They'll be there in 90 minutes. Can you hold out that long? Derek looked at his tactical display. The alien ships were closing again, preparing for another exchange. His shields were at 45%, ammunition was down to 60%, and his crew was running on drugs and adrenaline. We'll make it work, Admiral. Cole's expression softened slightly. What you've done today, Morrison. Buying time for those colonies, the fleet won't forget it. Stay alive, Captain. That's an order. Cole out. The screen went dark. Derek looked around his bridge at the exhausted faces of his crew. They'd been at battle stations for nearly 5 hours and the strain showed. Sir, the enemy is close enough to fire again, Lisa reported. Here we go again. Evasive moves. Return fire when ready. The Horizon's Edge dove through space, its railguns shooting death at the pursuing fleet. The aliens had grown more aggressive, pushing harder with each fight. They'd clearly realized the human ship was trying to delay them. Shields at 30%, Amy called. Captain, they're trying to surround us. 6 ships breaking formation to flank us. Derek saw the trap closing. Emergency jump, now. Captain, the drives aren't fully ready, the helmsman protested. I said now. The ship lurched as the jump drives turned on too early. The transition was rougher than before and warning sounds blared throughout the ship.